The Uber driver dropped me off at the end of the block. I told him to stop there, even though the house was still 100 yards away. I wanted to see it first. See it before I walked up to the door. It was June 1st, 2021. I'd been on a plane for 16 hours. Before that, I'd been in a desert for 9 months. My grandmother's house was the first thing I pictured every single night when I closed my eyes. The wraparound porch, the blue shutters, the rose bushes she planted the year I was born. I walked closer. The rose bushes were gone. Just dirt and dead roots. The porch had a stack of cardboard boxes on it, pizza boxes, a tipped-over trash can. The blue shutters were still blue, but one of them was hanging crooked, like someone had yanked it. I didn't speed up. I kept the same pace. Boots on the sidewalk. Duffel bag over my shoulder. I put my key in the front door. It didn't turn. The lock had been changed, so I knocked. The door swung open and my cousin Melissa stood there in yoga pants and a tank top, her hair in a messy bun, holding a paint roller. She looked at me, looked at my uniform, and her face did something I'll never forget. It didn't get confused. It didn't get apologetic. It got annoyed, like I was a salesman at her door. "Oh," she said, "you didn't get the memo." I said, "What memo?" She leaned against the doorframe. Behind her, I could see the living room. The walls were half-painted, a color I can only describe as ugly beige. My grandmother's furniture was gone. The old rocking chair, the bookshelf, the china cabinet, all gone. In their place was a cheap sectional and a flat-screen TV mounted too high on the wall. "Dad didn't tell you?" Melissa said. "This isn't your house anymore." I stood there. I didn't move. I didn't blink. She sighed, like I was wasting her time. "The will got contested. You were, deployed or whatever, so you didn't show up to court. Judge gave the house to my dad. He signed it over to me. Well, here we are." I let the silence sit. She shifted her weight, uncomfortable. "For $1, I said. She blinked. "What?" "The deed. It was transferred for $1. I checked the county records this morning." I didn't tell her I'd been up since 4 a.m. local time, jet-lagged, sitting in a diner with my phone, scrolling through public documents on 4 hours of sleep. I didn't tell her I had already seen her name on the new deed before I ever knocked on the door. She laughed, a short, dismissive, haughty laugh. "Whatever. It's legal. You can check all you want, Jake. It's mine now." I looked past her into the house, the banister my grandmother painted white every summer, the spot by the window where she kept her African violets. "Hi, all of it." "Grandma left me the house," I said, quietly, not arguing, just stating fact. Melissa rolled her eyes. "Grandma's dead." "Get over it." I looked at her. Really looked. 29 years old. Living rent-free in a house she stole for pocket change. Redecorating with money she didn't earn. Standing in the doorway like she owned the world. I smiled. "Nice paint job," I said. "She didn't know what to do with that." I turned around and walked back down the porch steps. I could feel her staring at me, waiting for me to yell, to scream, to break down. That's what she expected. That's what she wanted. I didn't give her anything. I walked to the end of the block, around the corner, until I was out of sight. Then I stopped, pulled out my phone, and opened the screenshot I'd taken at 4 in the morning. The county assessor's page. The will my grandmother signed on January 10th, 2021, 5 days before she died. Her signature, a notary stamp, my name, clear as day. Jake Miller. If this story moves you, do us both a favor and hit subscribe to K6 Karma in the Family. Trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. I put my phone away. I knew the legal fight would take months, maybe years, and I'd probably lose, for reasons I didn't fully understand yet. But I didn't need to win in court. I just needed patience. I smiled again, said nothing, and walked toward the main road. I had already checked the county records that morning, and I had a plan. I didn't go back to my apartment. I didn't unpack my duffel bag. I just pulled out my phone and called the only person who could help me untangle this mess. Linda Hayes answered on the second ring. Her voice was exactly how I remembered it. Sharp, direct, like she'd been waiting for my call. "Jake Miller, I was wondering when you'd show up." "I'm in town," I said. "I need to talk to you about Grandma's house. Figured you would. Come by my office. I'm still at the same place." She hung up before I could say anything else. That was Linda. She'd been a paralegal for 30 years. She'd watched my grandmother draft that will. She knew every document my grandmother had ever signed. I grabbed an Uber to her office. It was a small building downtown, the kind with frosted glass windows and a brass plaque that read, "Hayes Legal Services" in faded letters. Linda met me at the door. She was maybe 5 feet tall, white hair cut short, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She looked me up and down. "You look tired." "I just got off a plane from the desert," I said. "Then you're about to get angrier. Come on back." Her office was cluttered with files. Stacks of them covered every surface. She cleared a chair for me and sat down behind her desk. "Let me guess," she said. "You went to the house." I did. Melissa was there. "She's redecorating." Linda snorted. "That's one word for it. The word I'd use is trashing." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot. The will. My grandmother's signature. The notary stamp. "I saw this in the county records this morning," I said. "Grandma signed it on January 10th, 5 days before she died. She left me the house." Linda nodded slowly. "She did?" "Melissa told me the house was sold to her for $1. She said you contested the will and won." "I didn't contest it," Linda said. "Your Uncle Mark did." I felt my jaw tighten. I kept my voice level. "Tell me everything." Linda pulled a thick folder from her desk drawer. She opened it and fled a stack of papers across the desk toward me. "Your grandmother passed on January 15th. We filed the will for probate on the 20th. Your Uncle Mark filed a contest on February 1st, claiming you were unfit to inherit because of your military deployment." "Unfit," I repeated. "His argument was that you couldn't properly maintain the property while serving overseas. He said you had no fixed address, no way to manage the estate." "Linda, I was in a combat zone. I didn't exactly have time to update my mailing address with the county clerk." "I know that. You know that. But the court didn't." She slid another document toward me. "A court order, dated March 10th, 2021. The hearing was scheduled for March 10th. The court sent notice to your last known address. That address was your grandmother's house." "I was deployed. I wasn't getting mail there." "Exactly. You never responded. Default judgment. The court ruled in Mark's favor on March 15th. I read the document. It was all there. The judge's signature. The legal language. The words awarded the property to Mark Parker. "What about the will?" I asked. "My grandmother's wishes?" Linda shook her head. "The contest was procedural, not substantive. Mark argued you were unreachable. The court agreed. They set aside the will on a technicality." I set the paper down and picked up the next one. A quitclaim deed, dated April 5th, 2021. Transfer from Mark Parker to Melissa Parker. Consideration: $1 and no other valuable consideration. He transferred it to Melissa for $1. "Within 3 weeks of winning the case," Linda said. "He didn't even wait a month." I stared at the deed. My grandmother had lived in that house for 40 years. She'd planted the rose bushes. She'd painted the blue shutters herself. She'd left it to me, her grandson who'd spent 9 months in a desert because my country asked me to. And my uncle had stolen it, used my own absence against me. I looked at Linda. She was watching me carefully, waiting for me to explode. I didn't. "Can I get copies of all of this?" I asked. She blinked. "That's it? You're not going to punch something?" "I'm going to need a timeline," I said. "The date of the will, the date of the hearing, the date of the deed transfer." "Ingley." Linda nodded slowly. She pulled a second folder from her drawer. "I already prepared it." She slid it across the desk. Every document, every date, every signature, plus the county assessor's records showing the current value of the property. Much. It was appraised at $120,000 at the time of your grandmother's death. Probably a bit less now, given how Melissa's been treating it. I opened the folder. I scanned each document. The will, the contest, the court order, the deed, the assessor's records. It was all there. A complete picture of the theft. "What are you going to do?" Linda asked. "I'm going to think about it." "Jake, I know you. You're not the type to just let this go." I closed the folder and stood up. "Thank you, Linda." "For everything." She stood too. She held my gaze for a long moment. "Your grandmother was my friend for 40 years. She told me you were the one with her head on straight. I believe her." "Well, I appreciate that." Linda handed me the folder. It was heavy, full of paper, full of proof. "This is everything," she said. "Now, what are you going to do about it?" I didn't answer, but I already knew. I left Linda's office with the folder under my arm and walked to my truck. The papers sat on the passenger seat like a dead weight. I didn't look at them again. I didn't need to. I had the timeline memorized before I walked out the door. The house was worth $120,000. I had exactly $47 in my bank account. That number mattered, not because it was sad, because it told me exactly how far I had to go. I moved into a studio apartment on the bad side of town. 300 square feet, a mattress on the floor, a hot plate, a microwave. The rent was $400 a month, and I paid it in cash on the first of every month. The landlord didn't ask questions. I didn't offer answers. The next morning, I started my first job at 6 a.m. Construction, a crew rebuilding a strip mall on the east side of town. The foreman was a guy named Mike who'd done 2 tours in Iraq. He took one look at my DD-214 and put me on the framing crew without an interview. $13 an hour, cash on Fridays. No benefits, no questions. I worked that job from 6 a.m. until 2 in the afternoon. Then I drove across town and slept for 4 hours. Then I put on a uniform and worked night security at a self-storage facility. The night shift was 10 at night until 6 in the morning. I sat in a tiny guard shack with a space heater and a monitor showing 12 black and white camera feeds. Nothing ever happened. That was fine. I didn't need action. I needed time to think. The thing about a night shift is that it leaves your mind free. Mine needed work to stay occupied. Any idle moment turned into a replay of the conversation at Linda's office. The dates, the numbers, the way my uncle had signed his name on a document that stole my grandmother's house, so I filled every empty moment with another job. Weekends, I drove for Uber. I bought a used 2012 Toyota Camry with cash. No financing, no lease. I wiped down the interior between every ride. I kept a bottle of water in the cup holder and a single mint in the center console. I did it for the tips. 500 rides. $9,000. I ate 1 meal a day. Usually a protein bar and a banana. Sometimes a sandwich from the gas station. I didn't have time for restaurants and I didn't have money for luxuries. Every single dollar went into a separate bank account I opened in a different town. That account was invisible, untouchable, sacred. In the first 6 months, I saved $12,000. By month 12, I had $22,000. But the house wasn't looking good, and I couldn't ignore it. Every Sunday evening, I drove past my grandmother's house. I parked half a block down, engine off, windows down. I took photos. I took video. I documented everything. Month 3, a broken window on the second floor. Month 4, a bag of trash left on the porch for 3 weeks. Month 6, a section of the rotted fence fell into the side yard. Month 7, the grass was 2 feet tall. Melissa hosted parties. I knew because the cars filled the street every Saturday night. Music loud enough to hear from my truck. People spilling onto the lawn, cigarette butts in the rose bushes, empty bottles in the gutters. I took photos of all of it. Month 10, I checked the county tax records online. Melissa hadn't paid property taxes for the current year. The amount owed was $8,500, plus interest, late fees, penalties. Month 14, I checked the mortgage records. Melissa was behind on payments. The bank had filed a notice of default, $12,000 in arrears. The foreclosure process had begun. I kept working. Construction job, security job. Uber, sleep, repeat. One day blurred into the next. The only mark of time was the bank balance growing. Slowly, steadily, $30 a day, 40, 50. By month 18, I had $30,000. I sat in my truck on a cold December evening and looked at my phone. The photo of the house from last Sunday? Weeds in the yard, a torn screen on the front door, a for sale sign in the yard that hadn't been there 2 days before. Melissa was trying to sell. She was desperate. She was drowning. And I was ready. I had the money. I had the evidence. Now I just needed to make the offer. But I couldn't do it as myself. I had to be a stranger. I bought a prepaid phone from a gas station on Route 9. Paid cash. Activated it with a fake name. Not my first rodeo with disposable phones. The military teaches you a few things about operational security. I sat in my truck and dialed the number from the for sale sign. It rang 4 times. I almost hung up. Then I heard her voice. Hello? Oh, Melissa. Sharp, impatient. Exactly how I remembered her. Hi, I'm calling about the property on Maple Street, I said. My voice was flat. Professional. The Victorian with the blue shutters. Oh, yeah. Are you interested? I am. I'm looking for a fixer-upper, cash buyer. No contingencies. Silence. I could hear her thinking, cash. No contingencies. 2 magic words for someone drowning. Okay, well, it's listed at $135, but I'm flexible. I'd like to see it. We can do a showing tomorrow. Let me check my schedule. I'm available now. She hesitated. Now? It's 7 o'clock at night. I work early. Tomorrow's not good for me. Another pause. I could picture her looking at the stack of bills on the kitchen counter. The foreclosure notice? The tax lien. Fine. 40 minutes. I said I'd be there and hung up. 20 minutes. I drove slow, parked 2 blocks away, walked up to the house like a stranger. Like I'd never lived here, never climbed these oak trees, never watched my grandmother water her roses from this very porch. Melissa opened the door before I knocked. She was wearing yoga pants and a stained sweatshirt. Her hair was messy. The house behind her was dark. Thanks for coming on such short notice, she said. Sorry about the mess. I'm in the middle of some renovations. I nodded, walked past her. The living room was worse than the last time I drove by. The cheap sectional was frayed. The flat screen was still mounted too high. The walls had dirty handprints near the light switches. The hardwood floors. I remembered my grandmother refinishing by hand were dull and scratched. Melissa talked while I walked. Open floor plan. Newer roof. Great neighborhood. I let her talk. Let her fill the silence with desperation disguised as salesmanship? We went through every room, the kitchen where my grandmother taught me to bake pies, the back porch where she'd sit with her coffee every morning, the bedroom I stayed in during summer breaks as a kid, all of it trashed, worn, neglected. Melissa didn't even bother to clean for the showing. We ended up in the backyard, dead rose bushes, a rusted grill, the garden shed with the door hanging open. So what do you think? She asked. It needs work. A little elbow grease, that's all. Like can offer 90. She laughed. 90? It's worth 130 easy. It's not worth 130. It needs a new roof in 3 years. The foundation has settling cracks. The electrical is outdated. And the backyard is a disaster. I wasn't lying. I knew every flaw in this house. I'd studied it for 18 months. She crossed her arms. You can't go that low. 100. Cash, no inspection, no financing. Close in 2 weeks. She looked at me, looked at the dead garden, looked at the house behind her. Let me think about it. There are other properties, but not for cash. Like, not this quick. I started walking toward the side gate. Wait, she said. 110. Nope, 100. That's my number. 105. 100. Final offer. You can take it or wait for the foreclosure. Her jaw tightened. She knew exactly how close she was to losing everything. Fine, 100. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. I don't need a lawyer. We'll use a title company. With transaction. Okay, fine. We shook hands. Her palm was sweaty. Mine was steady. Midwest Title Company, I said. I'll call them tomorrow. Have them set the closing for December 20th. That's 2 weeks. Chic. Perfect. I walked away without looking back. Got in my truck. Sat there for a full minute with my hands on the wheel. It was working. She didn't recognize me. 2 years of manual labor and no sleep had changed my face. Hasses built my shoulders, deepened the lines in my forehead. I looked like a contractor, not the kid who used to play in this yard. 2 weeks. I called Midwest Title Company the next morning. Spoke to a woman named Carol, booked a closing appointment for December 20th at 10 a.m. She asked for my name. David Chen, I said. I waited until December 19th to send the wire. $30,000 from my separate account. $70,000 from a short-term loan Linda helped me arrange against my grandmother's estate. $100,000 total. Clean, legal, untraceable. December 20th, I put on a button-down shirt, a pair of work boots that were worn but clean, a baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses. I looked like any other contractor buying a fixer-upper. I drove to Midwest Title Company, arrived 15 minutes early. The office was small. Fluorescent lights. A receptionist with a headset. Carol met me in the lobby. Mr. Chen? That's me. She shook my hand, led me to a conference room, a table, 4 chairs, a notary stamp. Melissa showed up 10 minutes late. She was wearing a nicer jacket, a fresh layer of makeup, trying to look professional. Sorry I'm late. The traffic. No problem. We sat down. Carol spread the paperwork across the table. The purchase agreement. The deed. The disclosure forms. I read every page, not because I needed to, because that's what a normal buyer would do. Every second I kept my head down, she looked at me less. Everything look good? Carol asked. Fine. We signed. Melissa signed. The notary stamped. Carol made copies. Melissa handed me the keys. A brass key ring with 4 keys. The house key. The back door key. The shed key. The mailbox key. Enjoy your new home, she said. I took the keys. Felt the weight in my palm. Oh, I will. She smiled. I smiled. She didn't notice the difference. As I walked out to my truck, I felt my phone buzz. A text from Linda. How did it go? I typed back. I own the house. She replied. Good. Now the fun part. I drove home. Hung the keys on a hook by my door. Stared at them. Tomorrow she'd find out. The morning of December 21st, I woke up at 5:30. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to be ready. I showered, shaved, put on a clean button-down shirt. Jeans, boots that I'd polished the night before. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. 2 years of construction, night shifts, and Uber rides had changed my face. Harder. Older. My eyes looked different too. Calmer. I made coffee. Drank it black. Checked the folder one more time. The deed, recorded and stamped by the county. The court order for eviction, filed and signed by a judge. The receipt from Midwest Title Company showing the transfer. Everything Linda had helped me prepare. Every document she'd triple-checked for errors. At 9 o'clock, I got in my truck and drove. I knew Melissa was having a party. She'd mentioned it at the closing. Big celebration this weekend, she'd said, flipping her hair. Finally free of that albatross. She'd smiled like she'd won something. Like selling my grandmother's house to me for $100,000 was a victory. I pulled up to the house at 9:30. Cars lined both sides of the street. I spotted a Toyota, a BMW, a couple of SUVs. Music was playing from the backyard. Laughter. The smell of barbecue. I parked across the street. Hot. Folder in my left hand. I walked up the front path. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside. The living room was full of people I didn't recognize. A woman in a sundress held a drink. A man in shorts pointed at the TV. They looked at me, puzzled. I didn't stop. I walked through the house, past the kitchen, out the back door. The backyard was packed, 20, maybe 30 people. A grill was going, a cooler full of beer. Melissa was standing by the patio table, holding a wine glass, laughing at something. I stopped at the edge of the patio. Waited. She saw me. The laugh died in her throat. What are you doing here? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even smile. Melissa Parker, you have been served. I held out the folder. She stared at it. What is that? An eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. The whole yard went quiet. You can't do that, she said. Her face was already reddening. This is my house. Likes familiar. You sold it to me. The words landed like a punch. The woman in the sundress stepped back. The man by the grill put down his tongs. What? Melissa's voice cracked. The man who bought your house, I said. David Chen. That was me. You sold my grandmother's house back to me. She shook her head, slow at first, then faster. No, that's not. You're lying. You signed the deed yourself, at Midwest Title. I was wearing a hat and sunglasses. You didn't recognize me. I pulled the deed from the folder, held it up. This has your signature on it. Notarized, recorded with the county as of yesterday afternoon. I let her see it. She grabbed for it. I pulled it back. She started screaming, You can't do this. This is illegal. This is some kind of scam. It's legal, I said. You sold the house. I bought it. Now I'm evicting you. The court order is signed and filed. You get 30 days to remove your belongings. After that, the sheriff enforces the eviction. Melissa's face was purple. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking, and dialed. Put it to her ear. Dad, you have to come here. He's doing something. He's here. Jake? He says he bought the house. A pause. She listened. Then, quieter. What do you mean you can't? Dad, another pause. I watched her face fall. He can't come, she said, barely above a whisper. She looked at me. He said there's nothing he can do. I knew why. Mark had no legal standing. He'd transferred the house to Melissa for $1. He'd washed his hands of it. Now that his daughter was in trouble, he couldn't save her. He didn't have the money. He didn't have the legal authority. One of the men stepped forward. Melissa, what's going on? She turned on him. He's stealing my house. Ma'am, step back. The voice came from behind me. I turned. Officer Dan Kowalski was standing at the back door, hand on his belt. He'd arrived fast. This man is trespassing, Melissa shouted. Arrest him. Dan walked over, took the folder I held out, opened it, read for a moment. Is this your signature? He asked Melissa. She didn't answer. Ma'am, I asked you a question. Is this your signature on the deed transfer? It's a trick, she said. He tricked me. Did you sign this document or not? A long silence. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. Yes. Dan closed the folder. Then this eviction is valid. You have 30 days. I'd recommend you start packing. Melissa's friends were already moving. The woman in the sundress grabbed her purse, muttered something about needing to leave. The man at the grill followed. The music stopped. People filed out through the side gate or back through the house. No one looked at Melissa. She stood alone in the yard. Wine glass still in her hand, half full. Her face was a mask of shock and fury. You'll regret this, she said. Her voice was trembling. I looked at her. Still. I already own the house. I don't regret a thing. She threw the wine glass. It shattered against the fence, spraying red across the wood. Red drops on the dead roses, on the overgrown grass. Dan stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. She didn't calm down. She screamed, a raw sound that cut through the quiet neighborhood. People came out onto their porches. Neighbors I remembered from childhood. They watched. I turned and walked back through the house. Out the front door. Down the path. Past the blue shutters that still hung crooked. Past the dead rose bushes. I got in my truck, sat, and watched Melissa being escorted out of the backyard by Officer Dan. She was crying now. Loud, ugly sobs. I didn't feel sorry for her. I started the engine and drove home. The keys were still on the hook by my door. I took them down, held them. Tomorrow, I'd change the locks. I spent the first week in the house with a trash bag in each hand and a respirator mask over my face. Melissa had left behind a disaster. Fast food wrappers stuffed between couch cushions. carpet stained brown and gray. A smell in the kitchen that I couldn't identify until I opened the refrigerator and immediately closed it. I worked from dawn until dark. Every room got stripped to the studs. I pulled up the stained carpet and found hardwood floors underneath, worn but solid. I pried off the cheap modern trim and exposed the original crown molding, painted over a dozen times but still intact. On the third day, I went up to the attic. The pull-down ladder creaked under my weight. Dust and insulation covered everything. I found boxes of my grandmother's Christmas decorations, a trunk full of old linens, and in a cardboard tube behind the water heater, the original blueprints. I unrolled them on the living room floor. They were dated 889, hand-drawn on yellowed paper. My grandmother had mentioned them once, years ago. She said the architect who built the house had included a hidden pantry off the kitchen. Melissa never found it. I found it in the blueprints. I worked 2 more jobs for the next 6 months. Construction during the day, security at night. Every dollar went into the house. I learned to lay hardwood flooring from YouTube videos. I learned to strip paint with a heat gun. I learned to mix plaster to match the original walls. The kitchen took a month. I found the hidden pantry exactly where the blueprints said it would be, behind a false wall in the butler's pantry. It was empty except for a single mason jar with a note inside. My grandmother's handwriting, Jake, "This house has been waiting for you." Love, Grandma. I didn't cry, but I sat on the floor for a long time holding that jar. The garden was the last piece. I drove to the county extension office and asked for the original landscaping plans. They didn't have them. But I found photos in my grandmother's photo albums tucked away in a box from my mother's house. Rose bushes along the fence, hydrangeas by the porch, a lilac tree near the back corner. I planted everything from bare rootstock. It took a weekend. By the time I finished, my hands were blistered and my back ached. I stood back and looked at it. It wasn't mature yet, but it was exactly what she would have wanted. I moved in on June 1st, 2 years to the day since I came home from deployment. I sat on the porch with a glass of lemonade and looked at the blue shutters. Straight now. Properly hung, fresh paint. The house was quiet. It was mine. I didn't think about Melissa. I didn't think about Mark. I thought about my grandmother. About the summer days I spent on this porch, shelling peas into a bowl while she hummed old songs. About the smell of her tomato sauce simmering on the stove. About the way she hugged me when I left for basic training, holding on a beat longer than usual. That night, I cooked dinner in my restored kitchen. Used the cast iron skillet she left behind, the one I found in the attic. I ate at the table she ate at, the one I'd refinished with my own hands. And I thought about how patience isn't passive. It's active. It's showing up every day and doing the work, even when no one is watching. I sat on the porch looking at the garden. Grandma would have been proud. But I knew the story wasn't quite over. There was still the matter of my uncle. The news about Melissa came through Linda. She heard it from a neighbor who still kept in touch with Mark's side of the family. Melissa spent the first week at a motel on the highway, the kind with hourly rates and stained carpets. She called her father. Mark told her he didn't have room. His house already held his wife, 2 adult children, and a son-in-law who'd lost his job. She tried her friends next, the same ones who'd watched her get served at the party. Most of them stopped answering her calls within a week. One let her crash on a couch for 3 nights, then asked her to leave. By February, Melissa was rotating through whatever floor or sofa she could find. She had no job, no savings. The $100,000 from the sale was gone in 6 weeks. Back taxes, credit card debt, a lease on a car she couldn't afford. She posted on social media a few times, vague complaints about betrayal and karma. But the comments were not kind. People remembered her screaming at the police. They remembered the wine glass she threw. In August, she moved to Arizona. Her mother's sister lived there in a 2-bedroom trailer. Melissa took the spare room. She got a job at a call center. That was the last I heard from her. I did not feel sorry. Mark's consequences took longer. But they were deeper. He had always been the family fixer, the one who handled things, the one everyone trusted with money and documents. After the truth came out, that trust evaporated. A cousin's wedding in May. Mark was not invited. A 4th of July barbecue at my aunt's house. Someone sent him the wrong address on purpose. Thanksgiving, Christmas. The invites stopped coming. Family gatherings became quieter without him. But no one complained. The silence around his absence spoke louder than any argument, he tried to explain himself. Sent long emails to relatives I never read. Made phone calls that got cut short. He told my aunt that he did it for the family, that the house was meant to stay in the family name, that I was unstable, that I didn't deserve it. No one bought it. And me? I let go, not through forgiveness. Forgiveness requires the other person to want it, and wanting it requires admitting what they did. Mark never did that. Melissa never did that. They believed they were entitled to that house. They believed I was the villain. I stopped caring whether they believed otherwise. I lived in my grandmother's house. I woke up every morning in the room I slept in as a child. I made coffee in the kitchen she cooked in. I sat on the porch she built with her own hands. The blue shutters hung straight now. The rose bushes bloomed again. The garden had hydrangeas and a lilac tree, just like she planted. People asked me if I hated them. Hate is work. It takes energy. It fills your head with noise. I had spent 2 years working 3 jobs. I had spent 6 months restoring a house. I was tired, but I was not empty. I thought about my grandmother, about the way she smiled when I fixed her porch swing. Oh, about the way she said my name. I thought about what she would want for me. And it was not revenge. It was not hatred. It was not carrying their weight for the rest of my life. So I put it down. I do not hate them. I just do not think about them at all. The house stands at the end of Maple Street. A 3-bedroom Victorian with a wraparound porch. The neighbors wave when they walk past. Kids ride their bikes on the sidewalk. The mailman knows my name. It is not a monument to revenge. It is not a trophy of my victory. It is a house. My house, the one my grandmother left me, waited for me, saved for me through 2 years of silence and sweat. I live there alone, and that is enough. Thanks for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got more.